You don't make up for your sins in the church. You do it in the streets. You do it at home. The rest is bullshit, and you know it.
In considering the work of a film director, the issue of authorship is often inescapable. It becomes pressing when discussing the early work of Martin Scorsese. Over the past 30 years, Scorsese has directed an impressive canon of innovative and controversial films. He combines a cineaste's passion for film noir with appreciation for rich characterization and evocation of precise sense of time and place. A director who is genuinely an artist of a film is more likely to be the expression of his individual personality, and that this personality can be traced in a thematic and/or stylistic consistency over all, or almost all, the director's films. This begs the question of whether I believe this statement to be true. Well, focusing on his thematic consistencies through Catholic guilt, violence, and mentally unstable characters, examining and critiquing Scorsese's crime film Mean Streets, 1973, will now take centre stage. A gritty, realistic depiction of life on the sidewalks of New York's Little Italy, Mean Streets sacrifices meaning for authenticity. Strongly echoing Federico Fellini's early classic, Vitilioni, Mean Streets is an affectionate, funny and compassionate look at the down and outers that populated the world of Scorsese's formative years in Little Italy. The action is extracted from a select group of small-time crooks, all of whom know each other well. Central to the story is Charlie, Harvey Keitel, an honourable man who has trouble reconciling his religious beliefs with his day-to-day sinning.
Do that again.
Charlie takes on his energetically yet unhinged friend Johnny Boy, Robert De Niro. As his own personal penance, Charlie acts as a mediator throughout the film, placating Michael and imploring Johnny Boy in an attempt to contain the inevitability of violence and remain charitable. In spite of the diversity of his films, a body of work ranging from comedies and biographical pictures, Scorsese's mixed style accounts for frequent misunderstandings in the perceptions of critics and viewers. Most often, these critical readings target Scorsese's glorification of drugs, sexual violence, profanities, and more importantly, bloodshed. Some have claimed his work to be shameless, disgusting, unethical, and with the 2013 American black comedy Wolf of Wall Street recently hitting the screens, his depiction of the debauched rise and fall of a wayward Wall Street broker, Jordan Belfort, is bound to receive some negative criticism. With this being said, the debate of whether Martin Scorsese is indeed an auteur or a sensationalist is now sure to rear its ugly head once again. While some Scorsese films are unquestionably violent, when examined closely one can discern the difference between films which contain an honest approach to violence and films that glorify it. As we examine a range of different films, let us keep in mind that our discussion is not simply about the presence of violence, but the glorification of violence.
No, it's a nice pen. I just didn't know it was. I thought it was yours. I didn't want it to get lost.
Well, thank you. Why don't you take that fucking pen and shove it up your ass, you fucking jag off?
No, I was just offering you
The mere fact that a film contains violence does not mean that it glorifies it. I believe that to glorify something is to portray something as admirable. I position myself in agreement with Scorsese's extensive use of hyperbolic devices, projected violence, to create a sort of grotesque neorealism, and in so I posit as an alternative to criticism that unlike most directors who use violence frequently, Scorsese keeps a realistic approach, never allowing the violence to overshadow the meaning and consequences that come with it. So how does Martin Scorsese approach the aestheticization of violence throughout his films? The use of violence and gore is quite clearly present throughout. The scene in which a drunken man is shot at point-blank range whilst urinating in the restroom at Volpe's bar is aesthetically constructed in a violent manner. Equally violent, if not more so, is the concluding sequence in which Johnny Boy is gunned down in a car alongside Charlie and Teresa. However, there are very few sequences like this, and unlike Scorsese's later releases, such as Taxi Driver, Goodfellas and Raging Bull, the violence presented in Mean Streets is somewhat diluted and minute in scale in comparison. The focus of the movie is much more concerned with character development. As we have touched upon, Charlie's meditations on Catholic guilt and redemption, focusing on Johnny Boy's mental instability, becomes more compelling when discussing violent characters. Johnny Boy is clearly not overtly violent or psychotic, but wild, juvenile, and sometimes self-destructive. His psychological, mental, and social imbalances indicate he is somewhat unable to control these outbursts of immaturity, criminality, and vandalism. His unexpected behavioural tendencies range from skittering across rooftops while firing a .38, aimlessly throwing a bomb into a mailbox, and attacking virtual strangers when unexpectedly confronted. Whilst oozing insouciant charm, Johnny Boy also has sympathetic vulnerability that seems to be endemic to the type. Credit to De Niro for bringing such conflicting qualities to the character. In being characterised throughout the film as recklessly irresponsible, is his inexorable sense of feckless self-destruction that will be the instrument of Charlie's downfall.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Fuck face! Come on. Come on. I got something for you, motherfucker. Come on. Come on, motherfucker. My big shot. Come on.
Self-destruction, mental instability and stupidity epitomises the character of Tommy DeVito, Joe Pesci, in Scorsese's 1990 crime film Goodfellas. Desperate to declare and continually reassert his masculine superiority through extensive lengths, Joe Pesci expertly plays the role of Tommy DeVito.
No, I don't know. You said it. How do I know? You said I'm funny. How the fuck am I funny? What the fuck is so funny about me? Tell me. Tell me what's funny.
A gun-tooting, psychopathic Sicilian-American gangster and associate to the Lucchesi crime family in New York. Although also mentally unstable and inept of social and moral attributes, Tommy has a clear manifestation and obsession for violence and self-masochism, unlike Johnny Boy.
It is my preference to read that auteurism is fundamentally a critical practice that seeks to obtain meaning from a group of films through the examination of stylistic and thematic features that can be related to a single creative figure, usually the director. With this in mind, Andrew Sarah shares basic assumptions, most notably that a film is more probably of value if it is controlled by its director, and that for a director to be considered an auteur or author, his or her work has to evince a stylistic and above all thematic consistency. Moving on to Scorsese's use of stylistic features, it should be noted that Mean Streets evinces a cinema verite aesthetic. He creates a stylized realism that was absent in noir, affected in Godard, formative in early Cassavetes, and unreal in gangster films. Shot in Super 8 in a deliberately amateurish style. The documentary-like quality of the film is created in part by Scorsese's frequent use of what Marsha Kinder has termed the cinematic pseudo-iterative, that is, a mode of narration that suggests repeated, typical, everyday activities of the characters. This narrative mode is very explicit in the opening credits, which are superimposed over home movie footage, and it continues as the film introduces the four main characters in 4 vignettes: Michael, Tony, Johnny Boy and Charlie. Each of the first 3 vignettes end with the subtitle giving us the character's name, causing us to read the sequence as being in the iterative. The use of the colour red comes into play very distinctly, as the bar volpes is always bathed in red hellish lights. The colour of sex, blood and passion acts as a home for most of Charlie's sinful activities. Another love of Martin Scorsese's is music, and the study of various types of music such as Italian operatic band, folk and rock and roll is revealing in a richly evoking setting. Also, music serves as a light-hearted function in the poolroom brawl scene, when a fight breaks out over payment of a gambling debt. The action is underscored by a girl group version of Please Mr. Postman by the Marvelettes.
Hey, come on, get out from behind.
So the question that we must now revisit is, can Martin Scorsese be characterized as an auteur or a sensationalist? Well, while there may not be a simple or definitive answer to this argument, as it is purely a subjective one, the indisputable fact remains, whether criticised or celebrated, Scorsese remains one of the best and leading filmmakers in the world, and the fact that his films continue to provoke such reaction from moviegoers is a testament to his storytelling abilities and mastery of his medium. With regards to Andrew Saris's reading of an auteur, it is my preference to conclude that whilst Scorsese's films broadcast a highly specific milieu and mindset and authorship qualities in a dissemination of thematic consistencies and stylistic expression, his personal and artistic touches, which are central to the Scorsese world, clearly define one of the few remaining auteurist cornerstones of his generation.